Welcome to the What's Lacking podcast. It's your host, Larry Atencia. With me today is Nigel Hill. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm happy on this Sunday. I'm usually do my self care days. I'm usually in meditation, reading, cleaning, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to have you. How old are you and where are you from?
I'm 29 years old and I'm a bit from everywhere, but I would say primarily from Philadelphia.
So,
Yeah.
when you say a bit from everywhere, what are some other places that you call home or that you have connections to?
I have connections to Westchester because I was born in Westchester. I lived like 3 or 4 years in Westchester, and my family lives there. Reading, I lived in Reading for several years. Rhode Island, I lived in Rhode Island for several years in Connecticut, and I would say North Carolina and Philadelphia.
Okay, okay. What's Rhode Island like? I haven't met
But
many people from Rhode Island.
beautiful. I mean, it's not like Philadelphia. Philadelphia, a lot of people are, I don't know if we can curse on here, but a lot of people are just kind of like they're a
You
different
you
type.
can curse.
They're a bunch of assholes. Rhode Island is different. Rhode Island's like everyone's nice. It's pretty. It's beautiful. It's very small. It's 45 minutes one way to like up and back, but it's beautiful. Like it's the scenery there. There's formated rocks that come in. There's a thing called the hazard rocks where you can like go to this big rock on the middle of the ocean. They can walk there,
Wow.
and at nighttime the moon illuminates and just pierces right in the middle between the rocks. So it's very, very, very beautiful. It's very slept on though too.
Might have to make a little road trip to Rhode Island.
You should. You should. It's a lot. Like I said, it's underestimated a lot more than people think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven from Philly to Boston, and it was definitely not in our mind
Mhm.
to stop there.
It's crazy because a lot of celebrities have houses and
Mm,
beachfronts in there. Like Taylor Swift has her beach, like her main house is in Rhode Island, but not a lot of people don't know that. And a lot of like other celebrities too, they have like a row of celebrity houses because it's such a beautiful coast. It's so beautiful, especially in summer.
yeah,
Gosh, I hope you get there. I hope you see.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense since it's not part of our collective consciousness that they feel they could use it to just get away.
Yeah, definitely. If you like your privacy and if you like peace and calm, you'll definitely like that. You'll love Rhode Island. And the seafood there is amazing.
You sold me on Rhode Island. What do you do for a living?
So I work with children as an RBT. I own a video production company, and I also own a food truck. I'm a food truck business owner. Yes,
And
sir.
then we'll post links to those two businesses.
Hmm.
We met working at the same school, and we've had a few conversations around your video production and you working with Pusha T
Oh
or
yeah, I worked with Live Nation and stuff. I
okay,
record Caribou, JT, Core, a lot of that. So I get good opportunities. I've also recorded for the mayor, for a bunch of conferences like Black Excellent conferences and stuff like that. So it's definitely a growing business. I only started 2 years ago.
okay,
Actually, this is my second year coming up. So I only have really a year under my belt of actually doing videography. It's just something that I picked up one day and I was like, you know what, I really like doing this. I'm passionate about it, and I learned it. And a lot of people will be a little discouraged by learning something, but I learned something in a year, and I was able to apply it into a business in in a year, and get to a place from point A to point B in a very small frame. And all this is practice. All you need is learn. You learn.
yeah,
So
personal growth and personal development in order to be
to
able to make financial gains, but
yeah.
also I'm sure it helps you in terms of self-expression. And what's the food truck? What type of food are you or cuisine are you selling?
Fish and chips primarily. So it's Shorty's Fish and Chips after my great grandmother, who's the matriarch of our family. Our family owns a lot of restaurants in Philadelphia, and she was probably like the main, she was the matriarch, so she taught all the recipes, and it's kind of trickled down. So we sell fish and chips, salmon burgers, salmon nuggets, yeah, and soups. Hmm.
That
So
sounds
yeah,
that sounds great. It
I
sounds
got
like
I
maybe
gotta get you them.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like yeah, the recipes and from grandma, but maybe a little bit of influence from Rhode Island as well, or not
uh,
really.
so But I guess it's the salmon balls or salmon nuggets were more like Rhode Island because of the way I
Okay.
make them. But a lot of it just comes from grandma. I tried changing the recipe once, and Like, no, you don't do that. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, yeah. Keep the tradition going, and that's the reason why we call it tradition. Don't mess with
Yeah,
time tested recipes.
exactly. That's I got that driven into my head now. So yeah, we just deal with basically fish and chips, soups, and salmon.
That sounds really good. What are your hobbies?
If I'm not doing my video production or my food or anything business related, I usually am writing scripts and stuff. I write short films. I do music. I do nature walk. I like nature walks and everything like that. That's pretty much it. I'm not. I would say anything creative is pretty much my go-to. I'll do collages and videos and music. That's a big creative person, huge creative person, nature person as well, and reading. I like reading as well.
I know, based on conversations we've had, that you are definitely focused on artistic and creative expression. So that's always great to hear about and to be around. Just me as a person that's a little bit more analytical and rationalistic,
Mhm.
being able to get that energy and artistic spirit is always refreshing for me.
I would say that's how I was for a long time. Growing up, I was kind of told that I had to be a certain way. Like
Mhm.
I came from a whole like meat and potatoes type of family. If that makes sense. Where I wasn't able to like you could be artistic, but it has to be driven under the guise of business, or it has to be under that kind of stuff, where it has to be make logical sense. It was only until after college is when I really realized what creativity and the artistic expression did for me, because I'm not a person that could really was not really a person that could really open up, or I was not really emotionally mature to be able to express myself. But
Mm.
with art, it kind of came easier because I could put myself in between my art and myself, so I could be like, hey, this is how I feel. However, I can make it into a song, or I make it into a script and make someone else feel it. And then through that process, kind of gave me a more self-aware insight on who I was as a person. So I would say that I definitely was on, analytical, rational, logical, but then, yeah, I slowly had to break that mold of what I thought I was going to be in life, because what I was told about my whole life, so I just had to figure out what was who I was, and art just came natural.
That gives me hope, and perhaps to other listeners who are on that logical, rational, analytical personality types,
Mm.
to be able to know that you as an adult can rediscover or even discover anew a more creative, artistic self through self-reflection, self-understanding, etc. Because it sounds like you were similar to me, and then as an adult you were able to open new pathways toward artistry, which is exciting for me, and I think for other people, just because who wouldn't love to be able to have access to the more creative side of their being.
Yeah, just like you said, a lot of people think that, and a lot of this is what I don't want people to think. A lot of people think that just being like artistic has to be, painting and all this other stuff, which is not true. It's not true at all. Andy Warhol was really good at this. Andy Warhol was, a prominent figure in the art community in the '80s and stuff. And before he died, his one last thing he says, "I wish I could do is do the business of art." Which is his art itself, which you just learn how to make business and make creative ideas and make creative deals so you can be successful in business. And he just did it with art, but like creativity isn't just an artistic expression. Its creativity is also about applying it to your businesses and stuff like that. You make a deal, you make a 1 for 3, 2 for 5 kind of deal. That's creativity,
Mhm.
because you have to be able to express that. You have to be able to find ways to be able to move your business, your revenue flow into your business. So it does take a percentage of creativity, even if you don't think you're creative. Most people are creative. They don't put it under the same category as creativity.
That comment reminds me of the reason why people tend to celebrate and talk of Steve Jobs' genius, which is to have married business acumen with a an aesthetic disposition and idea with products, right? So the thing that made Apple so important was that it was sleek, it was chic, it was beautiful, and Steve Jobs was able to apply those design principles to the Apple products and make them that more popular than the more pragmatic, practical designs that Microsoft and other companies had in the tech sector.
Yeah, of course. He made it personal. He made it creative. He made it a
Yeah.
personal for you, and that's what a lot of people need to realize that creativity is you are. Oh, you're everyone's creative. Everyone's creative. Everyone's logical. It might take some time, or it might be under a certain guise, and you need to figure out what your guise is, and that's just comes with time and figuring out who you are as a person.
Are you married with children?
Nope, nope, no. I don't have any children. I'm not married. I'm dating currently, but I'm not married.
Yeah. Is that something that you see in your future, or
Um,
not really? Or something you haven't given much thought to yet?
I want it to be my future. I feel like that's like the dream, the wife, kids, married, picket fence, and stuff. However, I don't know. I don't think I've ever really seen a healthy relationship in my life. So I'm
Okay.
kind of like, even though it's a dream, I still got to work on myself in order for me to even get to that point. So right now, I'm in more of a focus mode of just, you know, trying to build myself up before I can even get to marriage. But do I want to be married? Yeah, of course. I feel like everyone wants to have love and everyone wants to
Yeah.
feel happy with someone else. But is it doable at this current state in my mind? No.
I like how you said that you want to work on yourself first to be able to create the type of person that would be prepared and worthy of a great relationship. And
Yeah,
so I think a lot of times we rush into marriage or relationships because that's the cultural norm that has been inculcated upon us. But working on ourselves is also something that maybe we need to do first, and then as fully prepared, fully developed individuals, then have a person next to us who complements and makes us better, as opposed to having them become the major source of our identity, or using them as a crutch.
exactly. You should not. You never should go into a relationship half full and expect someone else to fill you up.
Mm.
Not That's not fair to anyone. And if you don't work on your own cycles and your own problems, the cycles are just going to keep reappearing in your life. And I had to learn that the hard way a couple of times. I'm
Mm.
like, why does this keep going on? And I was always you did it. It's your fault. It's not my fault. I'm doing everything right. But then when couple relationships pass and you're like, oh, it's the same thing happens, you gotta look back at yourself and then figure out what it is that you're doing wrong, what it is that you're not providing, or what it is that you're not providing for yourself. And I don't want to discourage people that are like going through their own thing with their person and they're not fully healed or fully, to their potential, because you can be with someone and not be with your full potential, but then you have to be on the same type of page where you're both trying to get growth. And I don't know what that looks like. If you both are growing at the same time and trying to connect as one, that's something. But if you're trying to both grab each other's attention, grab each other's energies, if some people would say, and trying to put that into your own, is just all it's going to do is just leave you drained and burnt out and resentful.
Well said. What were your parents like growing up?
So my mom was a single mother. My dad was a drug dealer. He died when I was 7. Yeah, he got murdered for doing drug dealing. But my yeah, it's like
That
no,
that that might be seem a little inappropriate. I didn't mean to, be
it's cool.
disrespectful
It's cool.
about your dad's fateful end, but the way you said it, it's just like, you do things that are risky, and that might put you in a situation where that is a reality.
Yeah, they always say like you do drugs. There's only one or two ways you go to jail. You're dead, and
Hmm.
he did both. So he died, but he was a drug dealer, a very promiscuous man. He had a lot of children out of marriage, out of wedlock. He had a lot of problems, but he was a good person at the end of the day. And my mom, single mother, strong woman, and caring, nice, sweet. I feel like that's how it usually goes. And she raises all of her kids right. Never really had a man to help her provide for her children, and always gave us a sense of being ourselves and our identity, a sense of confidence. So she was a really nice person.
You mentioned that your dad was a good man ultimately, right? Regardless of the past history. Do you happen to have any good memories of being with him, even though he
Uh,
left when you were a small boy?
I don't have that much memories of him. I have memories of him smiling at me because it was such a long time ago. I have stories about him that makes me know he's a good man. The way that people talk about him makes me realize he's a good man. Makes me realize he was probably depressed, for real. But he ultimately was a good man. But he did a lot of very, very very bad things. You know, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I know there was a one story where he was checking on his blocks because he used to sell drugs in Uptown, and there was this kid. He had to be like 12 or 11, and he came up to him and was like, "I want to get into the drug game. You know, I want to make some money. I don't want to be out here doing this and that third." And my dad was like, "Well, why don't you come back in a week and come back here in a week, and I'll have something for you." And so the kid was like, "All right, cool." A week goes by, and he comes back, and he's waiting. My dad pulls up in the car, and the kid's like, "All right, I'm ready to work." And my dad has a jar of change that he has. He's like, "Here's the change." He's like, "Every week, I'll give you all my change. I like any change I get, I'll give it to you, and you can have it. Just don't be in the streets. Like you don't need to be in the streets." And like those kind of things, when I hear those kind of things about him, it's like I can tell you were a good man. Maybe not the most guided man, but you were a good man
Hmm.
also. Like your morally was like your moral compass wasn't as malfunction as people would make it seem.
Right. Yeah. He knew that trapping a child into that lifestyle wasn't the right thing to do. And he's like, don't follow me into this dark path.
I feel like that's how it is. That's a regular thing, especially in Philly. A lot of people get into these dark paths and they just don't see a light, so they just kind of keep like digging and digging and digging. They don't want to be in these dark paths. They don't want to be in these life paths that they have. But when you're told your whole life that you're a certain thing, or you're told you're
Mm.
going to be a certain thing, that just gets embedded into your subconscious. It's kind of hard to really de-root that feeling or those ideas about yourself. So ultimately, he perished, and I know I miss him dearly, but you get what you get.
How are you in terms of relationship with your mom today? Still a very great relationship?
It was rocky at first, especially
Okay.
since growing up, I didn't have a dad. So a lot of it was as a man. If you don't have another man to model after, it's kind of just like you're trying to figure it out yourself. A lot of anger, a lot of sadness on my part, and I would go out and do a lot of troublemaking, especially in the city. So like my mom had and me had a strained relationship when I got to the peak of my, I guess, criminal behavior, if you want to say that. My mom had to tell me I had to leave because of danger for her
Mm.
and myself. So that was a strain there. But now, as we're getting older, as I'm getting therapy, as I'm delving into myself, me and her relationship ultimately is getting a lot better, and we're closer. We talk every day.
Okay.
Yeah, we talk, we hang out, and everything. And yeah, that's my homie.
Great to hear. What was school like for you?
I've always been really good at school. Never studied. That was always me. I was a class clown. Charming. Yeah, you can tell. Probably. Yeah, I was charming, had, always talking to people, never really had any trouble at school. In high school, though, when I got kicked out my mom's crib, I went from an all black school in Philadelphia, an all Muslim black school. I went to Al Aqsa Academy, to Twin Valley, which is in Honeybrook, Pennsylvania. And if you don't know where Honeybrook, Pennsylvania is, it's a rural county, county Elverson, predominantly with white farmers. So that was a very drastic cultural change. So that was kind of hard to deal with. Being I was only one of four or one of five black kids in the whole school, and I had to be able to learn basically how to survive in that kind of setting when I was taught how to survive in a different type of setting.
Right.
So that was cool. I mean, it was a lot of bumps, a lot of racism in the beginning, but ultimately that stopped after I found the people that I was going to be cool with, and a couple fights here and there. But
How did you end up at that school?
My uncle. So
Mm.
when I got kicked out for doing some really stupid stuff as a kid, and my uncle was the only one that wanted to take me in, and he
Mm.
lived out in the county. My uncle, full display, my uncle's white. Like my family's half white. I'm not white. I'm like a quarter white, but my mom's half. So my uncle's fully white.
Mm.
So like I moved out with him, and he's 5'5". I'm 6 foot. So it's kind of like it was it was kind of crazy, especially seeing him yell at like yell and cheer at like football games. Like that's my nephew, and they're like, "What are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about?"
That's a great story. You mentioned you were on the football team. What position did you play, and how was that experience for you?
It was all right. I did football for a lot for until junior year. I got kicked off in senior year because someone talked about my mom, and I punched him in his face. And the coach was like, "If you're gonna be like that, why don't you leave?" And I just left. But it was good. I got offers to go play football in college. I didn't take that because I dislocated my shoulder. Ultimately, I did track in college, but
Okay.
I always thought it was a good experience. It was fun. It was really fun. Definitely helped me build the relationships I have now with my friends that I've had like since ninth grade, my friends now are still the same friends. So I would say it's definitely good to build community, build friendships, build discipline if you don't have any.
Yeah, I mean, just having this conversation sounds like you had a full and diverse upbringing and life so far as well.
Yeah, I definitely been through some stuff. I feel like I don't know if I've been through more stuff than the next person, but I just my own experience has brought me through a full spectrum of experiences, not from just one culture, but
Mm,
multiple cultures. Like my godmother is Pakistani.
mm.
Um, I lived in shelters my life, like a lot of my lives, stuff like that. A lot of life experiences at an early age kind of made me kind of molded my perspective and stuff. So yeah, definitely a lot.
And just from our interactions, I could tell you're an old soul and just wise beyond your years, and perhaps those life experiences have lent to that.
I appreciate the nice words, but I'm definitely not wise beyond my years. I'm still I'm still
you're
29 years old trying to
Yeah,
figure it
yeah,
out.
but you're maybe comparing yourself to the type of person that you want to be ultimately,
Mhm.
but just in relation to a lot of other men who are 29, or even me looking back at myself as a 29-year-old, I would be secure in my assessment of you.
I think a lot of it has to do, and it's kind of weird. Not having a dad because I wasn't taught what my father was taught or what his father was taught. I was kind of got stuck in square one. I feel like a father is like, or a parent figure, that kind of stuff, especially in the same gender parent figure. Is, at least for me, it's my own view. I'm not gonna say it for anyone else. Like it's like a guide, and always give an analogy. It's like, if you see a blanket of snow in the winter and you're scared as a kid to go into the snow because you don't know what's going on, but your dad kind of walks through the snow and you just follow his footsteps.
Mm.
So I feel like a lot of people got to be able to follow. A lot of people was following people's footsteps. Ultimately, that could make you a good man. But ultimately, if your dad doesn't have everything, or your mom, or whoever you're trying to follow in your footsteps or model after, doesn't have that kind of, the good qualities, it can shape you into who you are. And I didn't have those things, so I had to learn from people who I saw fit were good people, who I thought were what a man or a person, just in person in general, should be. And luckily, I was blessed with people around me that were ultimately amazing people.
How was your uncle, the one that you moved in with in Honeybrook? How was he as a male role model?
It was different because, like I said, he's white, I'm black. So there's like we're obviously, he didn't really care about me being black, obviously. He known me my whole life. But there's still stuff that like culturally like that I needed from being him, and he couldn't provide. But as a man, he was a good man. He provided, he showed me how to do certain things. As a man, he showed me the basics of like, how to change your tires, your taxes and stuff like that. He taught me how to do that. He also taught me that if I wanted something, don't talk about it, just be about it. Like you
Mm.
can't, like no one's gonna care about you if no one cares if you want to talk about it. Like you're not getting anyone's approval by talking about it. You're not gonna get anything done by just talking about it. You gotta be about it. And he wouldn't talk to me about it. He's more of a modeler. And that's how I am too. Like if I told him I want to do this and that third, like I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to stay disciplined enough to do it. He'll start a project in the same time frame that I would want to do something. Like just show you like it's not that hard, just a couple days or stuff like that. He was definitely tough on me because he definitely saw a lot. You know who I am as a person. I'm a lot all over the place. So he was definitely tough on me and kind of ingraining in me what is right and what's wrong. Especially since I came from a place from Philadelphia where I was going through, stealing stuff, fighting, getting into like really, really dangerous trouble. And then I'm going into a very, very rural, peaceful place. And he just kind of distilling, like, this is not really how it is.
Mm.
This is how it should be and stuff like that. So I give it to him. We definitely had our odds. We were, at ends sometimes, especially since, I'm a teenager and I think he was my age when
Okay.
yeah. So
Did he have children of his own? Were you living with cousins or?
not just him. He lived in a
Okay.
big house in Honeybrook, Pennsylvania, with his dogs. He had two dogs. Loved dirt bikes. He was a dirt biker. He had owned a koi farm. He's a koi farm. He did koi breeding. And my other uncle, crazy enough, is a bonsai expert. So like,
Mm.
yeah, so like I don't know where I don't know if we have some Asian or India. I don't know where the Asian influence is, but that was basically my time there, helping him with the koi farm or helping my other uncle in the summers with his bonsai farm.
What are your political views?
I wouldn't say I lean more left or right. I'm kind of, I guess I'm a moderate. I would say that I am a big researcher. If I like your views and your policies, then I'll go for what is the best I see fit that goes with my own perspective, aligns with my own agenda. So it's all about researching and development. I'm not a big person that's like, I'm a Democrat. I'm gonna be a Democrat to the day I
Mm.
die. I can't be. I'm a Republican. I'm gonna be a Republican. I'm like, no, because just because it's you're labeled as that doesn't mean that you know it's good. Like, yeah, people don't realize like Republicans were it used to be different. It used to be switched
Yeah,
actually. Like Republicans were actually the good guys at one point, and the Democrats were horrible. So I'm like, you don't be swayed just by a title. You got to be able to do your own research. So I'm a
yeah.
moderate. I'll say
Okay.
independent. You want to say that?
And talking about political shifts with the parties and what they stand for. Just even when I was growing up, the Republicans were the party of the corporate elites, right? Because they tended to be pro-capitalist, free markets, etc. And Democrats were the party of the working class. And with the rise of the populist movement led by Trump, what we have now is that the Democrats have become the party of the rich elites and corporate capitalist groups, and Republicans are now the party that represent and get support from the working class. So one of the major unions had the president had a speech during the Republican convention, which was the first time a union leader had a speech or supported a Republican candidate in maybe in a very long time. And Democrats got more money from corporations during this election cycle than Republicans did. And so the shifts continue, and history has its own logic.
Yeah, history repeats itself. That's why I'm always a big advocate that you should like everyone should just be like enthralled in history books because you'll
Yeah,
learn everything about what's going on now. So you can probably see what's going to happen a little bit in the future as well because history repeats itself. And like you said, you have where these two sides switched, and like it goes back to even slavery time because Abraham Lincoln was a Republican
yeah.
Party. That's
Mhm.
what I'm saying. So like there's it's always going to keep switching them back and forth. But I just like I said, I'm not going to be a person swayed by the title. You have to research and actually figure out what's going on with these parties, with these political candidates, in order for them to give a precise, actually, vote.
The partisanship and tribalism seems to be at a higher register than previously. Although,
Yeah,
uh,
everything's very on eggshells now. Everything
yeah,
is, yeah. You can't say the right. You say the wrong thing. It could be drastic to your career. It's scary, and I feel like I don't know how it got like well the rise of social media and stuff kind of got like that. But it's very strange times we live in. I don't think I've ever seen in my 29 years. I mean, it's not that much. I don't think I've ever seen such overall unorganized chaos.
I agree with that. It's been very interesting
Yeah,
living through this Trump moment, because I
yeah,
think he, even when he wasn't president, he was still dominated the way that we thought about politics and we thought about the culture. So he's definitely been the central political figure of the last decade.
yeah. He's definitely a polarized. He's polarizing. Like
Yeah.
his personality. It is.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Someone that just breaks the mold of what a politician should be. And I think that there was a book. I forget the guy's name is there's this type of style that President Trump employs, and I don't know how it is. It's like a very no filter style. And the person that did it beforehand, he was running for president. And once I think Monday, I'll have the book for you on Monday. But
Okay.
he did the same thing, like he no filter or anything, and then it caused a huge riot, and then he had to be kicked off the presidential candidacy because it was so dangerous of how he was talking, because people just bought into it too much, and then basically did whatever he said. Yeah, I think it was like in 1927, 1937. I forget what it's called. It was a really crazy read.
I think populist politicians tend to be very charismatic and demagogues, and their
Yeah,
speeches tend to galvanize and just energize their political base in a way that more practical politicians, run of the mill politicians, establishment politicians don't. And so I think Trump has been able to use his charisma and level of performance and demagoguery to be able to create a right wing populist movement that not many people saw coming.
not at all. That's all it is though. But it's also because of he went off the whole thing about him talking about he's like, I'm gonna tell the truth.
Yeah,
What was that one thing in with Hillary Clinton when they're doing the debate, and Hillary was like, oh, you steal and everything like that, and he's like, yeah, we all do, and he's like, like,
yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah,
I was like, oh, no politician has told me that, and I think he just ran with that, and then like you said, he became like
yeah.
a charismatic, and charisma just kind of led him to where we are now.
I mean, I think you're right in mentioning that he just seems to operate in a way that politicians aren't supposed to,
Yeah,
and agree with him or disagree with him. It seems that a lot of people just found that refreshing and wanted to connect to that level of honesty or candor
yeah,
that even when his own personal history was there's a lot of lies and duplicity and just corporate dealings that many people disagreed with. Just being able to be honest, I think people gravitated towards.
yeah. He's gonna be studied. Like he's gonna be a very crazy history study, but a couple of
That's
years.
true. Yeah.